If you illegally set foot on our Australian soil and you are not white, you will suffer a horrible and slow death. At least as long as Bruce Grigsby still walks this earth. You see, Bruce is a man who hates black and brown skin foreigners with every bone in his body. To him they are less than human and nothing more than unwanted pests. He's made it his lifelong goal to rid his country of them, and there's not a single line he won't cross to achieve his vision. But killing is far from just a means to an end for him. It's made clear right from his very first appearance that he finds perverse pleasure in dragging out the suffering of his victims with unspeakable and over-the-top methods that only a man as vile as him could conceive. The day Bruce Grigsby meets his maker will be the day he stops torturing and killing people, not a second before. Unlike many of the other sadistic and vile villains Dexter has encountered, Bruce Grigsby doesn't have any backstory provided to explain his cruelty. He doesn't either seem to be broken or mentally ill, just pure evil, plain and simple. And that actually makes him into somewhat of a rare breed in Dexter's world. Brian Moser, Trinity, and even the worst of the worst, Dr. Danko, all have troubled paths that more or less explain why they are the way they are and why they do the things they do. Bruce doesn't seem to have that. With that being said, let's take a deep dive together into the sadistic and utterly irredeemable antagonist Bruce Grigsby and why he is the most vile Dexter villain ever. And since we are talking about a racist serial torturer and killer, I strongly advise that sensitive viewers turn this video off right about now. The content you are about to witness is extremely disturbing and at times even graphic. For instance, in the very beginning of the Dexter comic Dexter Down Under, Bruce is lurking in the shadows of a shipping yard, stalking an immigrant family of 4 who just arrived illegally. Despite having endless opportunities to kill them from the very moment they said goodbye to the smuggler, Bruce waits just long enough for the family to feel safe. To feel as though they've actually made it, that the days of poverty, stress and oppression are finally behind them. Only then does he emerge from the shadows and massacres the family. When Dexter then later arrives at the crime scene as a blood spatter analyst, he observes that the slaughtered family had all the markings of a crime driven by rage. It's made very clear that this isn't just a regular murder, it was an act of passion committed by someone who took great pleasure in every moment of it. But I kid you not when I tell you that these were the lucky ones. I mean, this is a guy who kept people locked up in cages without clothes for days, trapped in the suffocating darkness of his remote farm in the middle of the Australian desert. A place so secluded that no one would hear their desperate cries for help. And these weren't just any ordinary cages. They were tiny, just big enough for a cramped up person to fit inside. Hunched over in unnatural positions and unable to stand up, they would just wait for the inevitable. Like, can you just imagine that for a second? Just being trapped in one of those cages, just sitting there, not knowing if your captor will even come back for you, or if you're just left for dead. Yeah, just a nightmare. You know, I'd rather watch Skylar sing Happy Birthday for 3 minutes non-stop than to endure that. That kind of help put things into perspective. The purpose of these imprisonments was to save them for a time when Bruce could kill them on his own terms, without any worries of being seen or getting caught. A time when Bruce would have complete and utter control over their lives and time of deaths. When the time was ready, Bruce would release them in a secluded desert area in the middle of nowhere, giving them a head start and illusion of freedom, before tracking and hunting them down like animals for sport. So, since his end goal was the hunt, he could have easily locked them up in bigger cages, allowing them more room to move, stretch and conserve their energy for when the time came. In a larger cage, they would have been less physically drained, more alert and ready for the chase, which would have dragged out the hunt and the eventual kill to the maximum. Just what Bruce seems to enjoy. But by keeping them in smaller cages, he ensured that they were exhausted both mentally and physically, and by the time he released them, they were weak, disoriented, and much easier to track. So Bruce was willing to sacrifice the satisfaction of a prolonged hunt just to make sure that his victim's suffering was as unbearable as possible. It seems that whenever Bruce is faced with a choice between 2 options, he will always go for the one that maximizes the amount of torment and suffering, even if it costs him more time, energy and resources to do so. And this theory will really be hammered down when we cover the insane tools he uses to hunt and kill, and the equally insane price tag that comes along with them. The thing that makes it possible for Bruce to do his thing for as long as he has is his extraordinary wealth. And this is what allows him to not only continue his path of destruction, but also doing it while simultaneously being the founder and CEO of a white supremacist group called Citizens for White Australia, and openly sharing his disgust for immigrants. This is an, to say the least, extremely unnecessary and risky thing to do, but with infinite money and the right contacts you can get away with a lot of things, including being very, very, very stupid. But his deep-rooted hate is just too strong to be contained in his day-to-day life. Unfortunately, I am sure that there are a lot of people out there, both in the fictional world of Dexter and in ours, who will not hesitate to commit similar acts if they had the time and resources to do so. But that's the thing, most people don't have that. Actually, now that I think about it, pretty much no one has that kind of power, and that is what makes Bruce Grigsby into such a devastating threat. He is shockingly evil and vile, which probably isn't that uncommon, but he also has the power to carry out his twisted fantasies, which definitely is. Let's take Dr. Danko for example, arguably one of the most sinister villains in all of Dexter. If you don't know who he is a former military surgeon and torturer who went on a vengeful rampage after being left for dead when he was captured by the enemy. He kidnaps his former military comrades and piece by piece surgically removes their limbs, lips, eyelids, ears, and, other more intimate body parts. Basically a walking nightmare. Now, Danko may have been more sadistic and cruel, but he wasn't nearly as successful because he didn't have a fraction of the resources or power that Bruce possesses. I mean, let's just say that you somehow managed to escape Bruce Grigsby, which most likely wouldn't be possible. Who would the authorities listen to? A newly arrived illegal immigrant, even a born and raised Australian, or a well-known billionaire philanthropist with a legal team that probably costs more per hour than you spend on cheeseburgers every month? And now let's cover his killing and hunting tools. And it's not your regular gear like a rifle or knife. It's a private arsenal of high-tech custom-built tools for one and only one purpose: inflicting physical and psychological pain on innocent civilians. He uses drones for tracking and a tank-like vehicle to directly kill his victims, and these tools cost a fortune. We don't know the exact number, but a similar drone in the same size as Bruce uses, with the same features and decent quality, would cost around $25,000 and a really good quality one, which Bruce would probably, use, that can cost more than double than that. And that vehicle of his, okay, the price tag on that one is insane. Basic armored trucks can range from $100,000 to $200,000, whereas high-level armored trucks may range from $400,000 to more than $1 million. But this is, clearly not an armored truck, but it kind of helps to put things into perspective. I estimate the price tag on that thing to be close to $3 million. But my point is that this really shows just how vile he really is, because this is far from the most effective way to hunt, but Bruce shows us again and again that he doesn't care about being efficient. He isn't enjoying the destination nearly as much as he enjoys the ride. For him, it's all about milking the sheer terror out of his victims, and he even states himself that his reason for using high-tech tools is because robots don't get tired. The suffering he can inflict on his prey isn't limited by his own physical capability. He would never be able to drag out his hunting trips for as long as he does, if not for his robots. Like imagine that. His mind and soul is so corrupt and unbelievably evil and willing that he literally can't keep up with what's naturally possible. And I'm gonna go ahead right now and make a little guess here, okay? I am pretty sure that you, at some point during this video, thought that Bruce reminded you of another main antagonist from Dexter, because when talking about Bruce Grigsby, it's impossible not to think of and mention the fact that he bears some striking similarities to Kurt Caldwell from Dexter New Blood. And let me tell you, the numbers of things that these two men have in common is more than you might think. Both are older white men who don't live in Miami. Kurt lives in Iron Lake, close to New York City, while Bruce lives across the globe in Australia. Even though Bruce's wealth put Kurt to shame, both are rich and very well off. Both are driven businessmen, and lastly, the most obvious similarity, they both kidnap and imprison their victims before releasing them to hunt and kill them. Also, Bruce uses drones with cameras to hunt, while Kurt uses a camera to watch his victims before he hunts them. So yeah, in my opinion, Bruce Grigsby is the most vile Dexter villain ever. He is free from all sorts of sympathy, and he possesses such an aggressive hate and rage that I couldn't help but feel a little bit uncomfortable when I read the comic. You know, there's nothing redeemable about this guy whatsoever, and the way he goes about, you know, his killing is, yeah, it's just straight up disgusting. And, you know, spoiler alert here for the end, for you who want to know what happened to him in the end. Dexter kills him, in front of a cop, actually. And since all the evidence they had against Bruce was illegally obtained on his property, Dexter and the cop could not claim self-defense, so they agreed to keep it a secret, and then they free all the people in the cages. So yeah, it kind of a happy ending to a very gruesome story. Let me know in the comments if you agree with me that Bruce is the most vile villain in Dexter, or if you perhaps have another character in that spot. It will be very interesting to hear what you have to say. But now, I'm gonna stop yapping, okay? So you can just, you know, watch the next video, or, you know, brush your teeth, or take a shower, or go to sleep, or whatever you're about to do. And I see you in the